"You're cute when you try to talk about money," Marcus said, laughing, as he reached across the table and flicked my forehead with his finger. "Leave the big numbers to the people who actually bring them in, babe. Your little HR check buys candles. My commission pays for the roof." Everyone at the bar laughed. Our friends, his coworkers, even the new girl from sales who'd only been there a month. I laughed too, because what else was I supposed to do? Sit there and explain that I processed the payroll for half the people at that table? That I'd onboarded 3 of them, fixed 2 of their benefits mistakes, and stayed late last week to manually correct a tax error that would have gotten the company fined? No. I just smiled, took another sip of my drink, and let the moment slide by like it didn't hurt. Let me rewind. I'm 28. I work in HR and payroll at a mid-sized company. Not glamorous, not flashy, but steady. I know everyone's salary, which is both a blessing and a curse. I know who is lying when they say I'm broke. I know whose humble lifestyle costs more than my entire paycheck. Marcus, my husband, is in sales. Same company, different universe. His job comes with bright numbers on big screens, leaderboards, spiffs, bonuses, President's Club trips to places I used to only see on Pinterest. Mine comes with spreadsheets, policy updates, and people only remembering my name when their deposit is wrong or their benefits portal won't open. We used to joke about it back when we were still just dating and sharing takeout on my tiny couch. "You're the brain, I'm the mouth," he'd say, pointing between us. "You make sure the checks come on time. I make sure there's enough zeros." Back then, it felt like a team. Back then, we split dates down the middle. I paid for groceries, he paid for gas. We argued playfully about who'd tip more. Back then, when he called my paycheck little, it sounded like affection. Somewhere between "I do" and "this house is expensive." The tone changed. We bought our place 2 years into the marriage, right after Marcus had his first monster quarter. He got a bonus so big, he printed the pay stub and stuck it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a tropical island. "Look at that," he said, grinning, arms around my waist. "You really married up, huh?" I laughed, but it landed different this time. My own paycheck had helped too. My credit history. My boring, steady job. The little raises I'd gotten every year for not messing up any deadlines. But on the day we closed, the story started to slant. He was the one handing the cashier's check to the title officer. He was the one his mother bragged about on Facebook, so proud of my son for buying his first home. My name was on the papers too, but you wouldn't have known it from the way people talked. That's when the small paycheck jokes really started. At brunch with his family, "Don't worry, Mama," he'd say, waving his hand. "We'll get the house painted next year, soon as I land this next bonus. Nia's check is for Target runs, not renovations." Everyone chuckled. I smiled, cheeks burning. At work happy hours, "Oh, she knows where her bread is buttered," he'd tell his buddies, pulling me close. "I tell her just keep those HR people happy so my check hits. I got the rest." They'd slap each other on the back, talk about carrying their women, and order another round. I'd do mental math in my head, thinking about how much I actually contributed every month. My small paycheck paid the utilities, internet, groceries, half the car note, my student loans, the emergency savings I quietly topped up whenever I could. But if you listened to Marcus long enough, you'd think I was a very well-dressed roommate who occasionally bought scented candles. The controls started small. "Let's just simplify things," he said one night, scrolling through a budgeting app on his phone. "We put your deposit into our joint account, but I'll be the one paying everything out. It's just easier if one person handles the bills." "Okay," I said. It sounded reasonable. Maybe we should get rid of that old checking account you had before we got married, he added casually. No need for extra fees. We can be a team now. I didn't close it, but I did stop using it for daily things. I let it sit, half forgotten. He put his name first on the new joint checking and joint savings. He linked his cards, his apps, his rewards. Little by little, his money became ours, and mine became extra. Every time I had an opinion about a big purchase, new car, big TV, fancy vacation, it turned into a joke. You're adorable, he'd say, talking about a budget with HR money. Marcus, I'd protest. I'm the one who knows where all the cost of living raises are going. The economy is. He'd cut me off with that same sentence, over and over. Babe, I love you, but your paycheck is for vibes. Let me worry about the real stuff. It wasn't just about money. It was about power. If I wanted to help my little sister with books for school, I had to run it by him, because we have goals. If I bought myself something nice, like the black coat I'd been eyeing since last winter, he'd raise an eyebrow and say, "Guess HR got a bonus I didn't hear about." I started preemptively explaining every purchase. This was on sale. I used a gift card. My coworker gave me a discount. It took me a while to hear how small I sounded, reporting like a teenager with an allowance. The irony? I work in HR payroll. I see the emails he never reads, the policy updates, the memos about the company's equity plan and retirement contributions, the boring, unsexy parts of money. I was there 5 years ago when the company was struggling, when leadership called a handful of us into a stuffy conference room and said, "We can't give raises this year, but we can offer you something else, an employee equity savings account. You can choose to divert a portion of your paycheck into restricted stock units. It's risky, but if the company turns around, you'll own a piece of that upside." I was 23, living in a studio with a leaky window, catching 2 buses to work. But I signed. 5% of my paycheck, gone before it even hit my account. It hurt at first. I packed more lunches, said no to more outings, watched coworkers roll their eyes and say, "I'll take cash, thanks." Back then, I had no husband, no house, no one to justify myself to. It was just me and this quiet belief that future me would thank present me for being a little uncomfortable. When Marcus and I got married, that little line on my pay stub, equity savings deduction, was just noise to him. He skimmed, saw my net pay, and shrugged. "See?" he said once, holding both our pay stubs side by side. "Look at the difference. I'm not saying you don't work hard, but it's obvious who's carrying who, baby." He kissed my forehead like he'd just bestowed a blessing, then walked away. I looked at those 2 pieces of paper for a long time. On his, the gross pay was bigger, the commission line was thick, the net number at the bottom was loud. On mine, the gross was smaller, the taxes were precise. The equity deduction was a little staircase leading away from spend today and towards something I couldn't quite see yet. He saw small paycheck. I saw a seed. I just didn't know yet exactly how big that seed had grown. Not until the night he embarrassed me in front of half the company, and the next morning, when I finally logged in to check the account I'd almost forgotten I had. I barely remember the Uber ride home that night. Just flashes. Marcus leaning back in the seat, one arm draped over me, laughing with the driver about sales guys carrying whole departments on our backs. The driver glancing at me in the rearview mirror, like he could feel the sting behind my smile. My phone, cold and slick in my hand, screen lighting my face every time I checked it, just to have something to look at. By the time we got to the house, My cheeks hurt from pretending. Marcus unlocked the door, kicked off his shoes, and headed straight for the kitchen. "You want anything?" he called. "I'm starving." I stood in the doorway for a second, keys still in my hand, feeling that weird buzzing in my chest, like my body was vibrating but I couldn't move. "You good?" he asked, mouth full of leftovers, leaning on the counter. "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." He smirked. "See, that's the thing," he said. "You get tired talking about money. I get tired making it." He thought he was being cute. I just walked past him, went straight to the bedroom, and closed the door. I showered with the lights off. Let the hot water beat down on me in the dark, mascara streaking, my braids heavy on my back. The words from the bar played on a loop in my head. "Your little HR check buys candles. My commission pays for the roof." I could still hear the laughter. The new girl from sales cackling like she'd heard the funniest thing in the world. One of his friends raising his glass and saying, "To big money, baby," like we were all in on the joke. I pressed my forehead against the cool tile and let myself feel it for once. The humiliation, the anger, the way my stomach had dropped when Marcus flicked my forehead like I was a child. I'm 28, a black woman who has held down a full-time job since I was 21, never been late on rent, never overdrafted, never missed a student loan payment. I've watched my mother stretch checks until they were see-through. I've seen what it looks like when someone's whole life can be ruined by one missed paycheck. And here I was, letting a man tell a room full of people that my labor was basically scented wax. When I got out of the shower, I wiped the mirror with my hand. My face looked different. Same brown skin, same tired eyes, same edges refusing to lay perfectly no matter how much gel I used. But something in my expression had changed. Less fog, more focus. My name is Nia, I thought, staring at myself. And I am not a side character in my own paycheck. Marcus came to bed smelling like cologne and fried wings. He flopped down beside me, scrolling through Instagram, laughing at videos with the volume a little too loud. "Babe, you still salty about that joke?" he said eventually, glancing over. "Come on, everybody knows you're the smart one. I just make the money." "You really think that's all I do?" I asked quietly. "Buy candles?" He chuckled. "I'm just saying what's true," he said. "You're cute when you try to talk like a financial advisor. It's adorable." Something in me went still. It was like a little internal switch flipped from explain to observe. "Okay," I said. "Good night, Marcus." He sighed. "Don't start," he muttered, turning over. "We had a good time tonight. Don't ruin it with feelings." His breathing evened out after a while. Mine didn't. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the digital clock casting red numbers on the wall. 11:47 p.m., 12:03 a.m., 12:26 a.m. Sleep wasn't coming. My brain, traitor that it is, started doing what it always does. Rent, mortgage, groceries, utilities. The transfers I'd set up from our joint account to savings. The tiny auto transfer I'd quietly kept from my pre-marriage days. The one into that old checking account he thought I didn't use. And then I remembered something else. An email from earlier in the week, buried in my inbox. Subject line, confidential, employee equity savings plan. Important update. At the time, I'd skimmed it between onboarding meetings. Something about a definitive agreement and pending acquisition and anticipated share conversion value. HR had flagged it. Finance had flagged it. Our leadership had done that big word tap dance that basically meant we're being bought. If you own a piece, that piece is about to change. I sat up slowly. My heart started pounding for a different reason. I reached over Marcus, grabbed my phone off the nightstand, and slid quietly out of bed. In the living room, the glow of the streetlights slipped through the blinds, striping the couch in pale orange. The whole house was still. TV dead black, fridge humming softly in the kitchen. I curled up on the far end of the sofa, pulled my knees to my chest, and opened my email. There it was. Confidential, employee equity savings plan. Important update. I tapped it open. Dear participant, as you may have heard during today's all hands, company name has entered into a definitive agreement to be acquired by big corporation. Employees participating in the equity savings plan as of the valuation date will receive a cash payout or share conversion based on the final purchase price of XXX per share. My eyes skimmed down to the part that mattered. To review your current equity savings plan balance and projected payout, click here. My thumb hovered over the link. For years, that account had been theoretical. I never touched it, never really checked it. I just let that 5% sneak out of every small paycheck and go work quietly where no one could see it. What if it was nothing? What if, after all this time, I'd sacrificed dinners out and new shoes for an extra $2,000? What if Marcus was right? My chest tightened. Then another thought slid in. What if he wasn't? I clicked. The browser opened to the company's benefits portal. Blue and white logo. The same bland design I'd helped test back when they first rolled it out. Username, nia.king. Password? I held my breath as the little loading wheel spun. The dashboard appeared. Retirement account. Flexible spending. Health savings. Equity savings plan. For a second, the screen went blank. Then numbers appeared. At first, my brain didn't process them. I saw commas. Too many commas. I blinked. Read it again. Current units, number. Acquisition conversion value per unit, $. Projected payout at closing, before taxes, 6 figures. My breath left my body in a rush. No may, I whispered. I closed the app, reopened it, still there. I scrolled down, looking for the mistake. There was a little bar graph showing contributions over time, the share price crawling upward year after year. The last jump was huge, spiking up when the acquisition was announced internally. I tapped history. Every pay period for 5 years, there it was, equity savings contribution 5%. Little pieces of all those small paychecks he'd laughed at. Every lunch I'd packed. Every wig I'd kept 1 extra month. Every weekend I'd stayed in when my girls went out of town. All of it had been stacking quietly in the dark. Now, because some giant corporation had decided to swallow my company whole, that stack was about to turn into real, tangible, life-changing money. Money in an account with one name on it. Mine. Not ours. Not Mr. and Mrs. Nia King. I stared at that projected payout until my eyes blurred. It wasn't billionaire money. It wasn't retire on a yacht money. But it was pay off my student loans in one shot money. Have my own emergency fund that no one else can touch money. Walk away from a man who believes my worth is measured by a net pay line on a single stub money. I leaned back against the couch, phone pressed to my chest. Somewhere down the hall, Marcus snored and rolled over, probably dreaming about his next commission check. He had no idea that on paper, with this one account, I was about to own more of the company than he did. A tiny laugh bubbled up in my throat, half hysterical, half relieved. All those nights I'd laid awake, wondering what would happen if he walked out and took his money with him. All that time, a backup plan had been growing quietly in the background, like a savings tree I'd planted and forgotten to check on. Now it was full-grown. I sat there for a long time, just breathing, letting my heart rate settle. Then the HR part of my brain, the one that never really sleeps, kicked in. This wasn't just emotional. This was procedural. I worked in payroll. I had access to systems most employees didn't. I needed to be above reproach. And with a payout this size, there'd be tax implications, conflict of interest rules, policy landmines. I opened my email again. This time I started a new message to hrdirector@company.com. Compliance@company.com. Bracket. Subject, equity savings plan clarification request, potential conflict. I stared at the blank body for a moment, then started typing, fingers steady. Hi everyone, this is Nia King from HR Payroll. I'm writing to request a confidential meeting regarding my equity savings plan account and to clarify any potential conflict of interest considerations, given that my spouse is also an employee in sales. By the time I hit send, the first light of morning was edging along the horizon, turning the blinds a pale gray. I stood up, stretched, and went back to the bedroom. Marcus was still asleep, face slack, phone on his chest. I slid under the covers, my mind buzzing, not with anxiety for once, but with a strange electric calm. For years, he'd made sure I felt small every time money came up. In a few hours, HR was going to call me into a glass-walled conference room, pour coffee into little company mugs, and show me on official letterhead exactly how big my so-called small paycheck had grown. And before the day was over, that conversation was going to send a shockwave straight into Marcus's world. He just didn't know it yet. By the time my alarm went off, I'd slept maybe an hour. I moved through my morning on autopilot. Shower, moisturizer, twist my braids into a loose bun, light makeup to hide the shadows under my eyes. In the kitchen, Marcus was already dressed in one of his big client suits. Navy, sharp shoulders, crisp white shirt. The watch I'd helped him pick out when we were still splitting everything 50-50 ticked smugly on his wrist. He was humming. That alone annoyed me. "Morning, small paycheck," he said, smacking a kiss onto my cheek without really looking at me. "You good? You seemed emotional last night." I reached for the coffee pot like it was a lifeline. "I'm fine," I said. "Just had a lot on my mind." He laughed. "You always do," he said. "That's what I love about you. You think, I do. Perfect balance." He'd looked closer. He might have noticed something had changed. Same outfit. Same work bag. Same travel mug. Different center of gravity. I poured my coffee, grabbed an apple, and slipped my phone into my pocket. The email icon already showed a tiny red bubble. "See you at the office," I said. "Don't forget," he called after me. "We got that happy hour on Friday. Management will probably announce more details about the acquisition. Big moves, baby." "Yeah," I said quietly, "big moves." At my desk, my computer took longer than usual to boot up, like even the machine knew it was a big day. The office buzzed with an energy I recognized. Speculation, gossip, everyone trying to act normal when they know a storm is either about to hit or pass them by. I opened Outlook. There it was. From HR Director, subject, Re-Equity Savings Plan, meeting. "Hi, Nia. Thanks for flagging this. Let's sit down today with compliance and walk through everything. Can you come by the glass conference room at 10:30 a.m.? Elena, 10:30. 2 hours. I sat back. I've scheduled 100 meetings like that for other people. I've watched employees walk into those rooms with sweaty palms, watched them walk out relieved, or in tears, or quietly furious. I'd never been the one on the receiving end of that kind of, "let's walk through everything." My stomach fluttered. What if they decided there was a problem with my account? What if, because I worked in HR, they thought I had some unfair advantage signing up for the plan? What if they said I had to roll it into something else, or that Marcus's role in sales complicated my payout? The anxious part of my brain spun, trying to find ways this could all be taken away. The calmer part, the one that had stared at the number on my phone last night, kept repeating 3 facts. I signed up for the plan like every other eligible employee. I diverted my own pay for years. The account is legally in my name. Full stop. At 10:28, I closed my spreadsheets and stood up. On the walk to the conference room, I passed Marcus's floor. Through the glass, I saw him at his desk, laughing with 2 other sales reps, probably bragging about a deal. He didn't see me. For once, I was glad. The glass conference room always felt like a fishbowl. Today, the blinds were partially drawn, muting the outside world into blurry shapes. Inside, everything was too bright. The table was too white. The chairs were too chrome. Elena, our HR director, stood as I walked in. She's a Latina woman in her 40s, hair in a sleek bob, always perfectly put together, but not in that cold way. More like your no-nonsense aunt who would hug you and then tell you exactly what you needed to hear. Nia, she said, smiling. Thanks for coming. Grab a seat. Next to her was Jonah from compliance. Soft-spoken. Always in those same light blue shirts, glasses sliding down his nose. He nodded. Morning, he said. Morning, I replied, suddenly aware of my heartbeat. Elena closed the door. So, she said, opening a folder with my name on it. You sent quite an email last night. I let out a small, nervous laugh. Yeah, I said. Sorry for the late hour. I just realized I should probably get ahead of any issues before the acquisition goes through. Don't apologize, she said. That's exactly what you should do. Better we talk now than after the fact. Jonah slid a printed statement across the table. My name was at the top. Equity Savings Plan, participant Nia King. Below, the numbers I'd seen on my phone the night before were printed in black and white. Seeing them on company letterhead made it feel more real and scarier. First things first, Jonah said, you're not in trouble. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath until it left me in a rush. You signed up for the plan when we launched it 5 years ago, he continued. You've consistently contributed 5% of your pay. There's no policy violation there. In fact, finance wishes more employees had done what you did. Elena smiled. You'd be surprised how many people said no because they wanted the cash right away, she said. You played the long game. My throat tightened. Okay, I said. So, the projected payout is accurate? Jonah nodded. Based on the current agreed-upon share price in the acquisition, yes, he said. It could shift slightly depending on some closing costs. But you are looking at a significant amount. He tapped a line halfway down the page. Enough that for internal tracking purposes, you qualify as a key individual shareholder once the deal closes. The words felt surreal. Key. Shareholder. Me. 28-year-old HR payroll girl whose husband thought her money bought candles. I swallowed. That's actually why we wanted to talk to you in person, Elena said. Not to scare you, just to make sure you understand what that means for you, both as an employee and as, well, a person. She folded her hands. As an employee, we need to make sure there isn't any conflict of interest with your spouse's role in sales, she said. That's why Jonah's here. You did the right thing looping us in. Jonah adjusted his glasses. We have policies about household members when one person is in a position to influence the company's valuation or access material, non-public information, he explained. That's more relevant to executives, but your equity position brings you into a gray zone we need to treat carefully. I nodded, trying to follow. So what does that mean? I asked. Am I supposed to do something? Not tell Marcus? Jonah shook his head. You're not required to hide your own finances from your spouse, he said. That would be unrealistic. But internally, we do need to make sure he isn't working on certain deals that could raise questions, especially anything tied directly to the acquisition or to big enterprise contracts that might sway the purchase price. He glanced at Elena. We've already flagged his role in the system with a note, he added. We'll be speaking with him separately this afternoon. The words landed like a quiet thunderclap. We'll be speaking with him separately. For once, I wasn't the one being called in about money. I kept my voice even. Okay, I said. I just don't want anyone to think I used my position in HR to get some special advantage. You didn't, Elena said firmly. This plan was offered to any eligible employee at the time. If anything, you're a model case for why these programs exist. She paused. And there's something else, she said. Since we have you here, we want to address a related issue. You're not in trouble with this either, but it does involve your husband. My stomach dipped again. What kind of issue? I asked. Elena and Jonah exchanged a look. Workplace respect, she said. I'm sure you know this, but jokes about people's paychecks, especially as spouses, can create a hostile environment. It's not just personal. It affects the people who have to listen to it. My face burned. I wanted to disappear into the chair. We've had a few informal comments over the past year from employees who felt uncomfortable with some of the things Marcus has said at company events, she continued gently. They didn't file formal complaints, but they did mention repeated remarks about your small paycheck and him carrying you financially. I stared at the table. I could picture those moments clear as day. The bar, the happy hour, the team lunch. I'd been so focused on my own embarrassment, I hadn't fully considered that other people were watching too. I'm sorry, I said automatically. I didn't want to cause any trouble. Elena's eyebrows lifted. You didn't cause anything, she said. Let's be clear on that. His words are his responsibility. She leaned forward slightly. Nia, I want you to hear this from another black woman in HR, she said quietly. You are not obligated to laugh along while someone chips away at your dignity. Not at home, not at work, not in public, not in private. My eyes stung. I blinked fast. Jonah slid a box of tissues toward me without comment. Thank you, I said, voice a little thick. We're not here to tell you what to do in your marriage, Elena added. That's your business. But inside these walls, you're an employee and a shareholder. You're entitled to the same respect as anyone else. She sat back. So here's what's going to happen, she said. Jonah and I will handle the conflict of interest piece with Marcus and his manager. We will also have a separate conversation with him about our code of conduct and how he talks about you and your role. You don't have to be part of that unless you choose to be. My heart thudded. He's going to think I came in here complaining, I said. Let him think what he wants, Elena replied. You sent us a professional email about your equity account. You didn't mention any of this. We're addressing it because it's our job. She smiled slightly, and because some of us have heard him too. I looked up, startled. She shrugged. You weren't the only one at that bar last month, she said. Or the holiday party, or that offsite. People remember. Heat crawled up my neck. The humiliation from the night before shifted into something else. Not quite satisfaction. Something more like validation. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't been oversensitive. It really had been as bad as it felt. Jonah cleared his throat. One more thing, he said. From a personal finance perspective, we strongly recommend you speak with an independent advisor about your payout options. Lump sum, tax planning, long-term goals? That's outside our lane, but it's important. He slid a pamphlet across the table, saying, Here's a list of firms we've vetted for employees, he said. They're not affiliated with us. You don't have to pick one of these. Just don't let this kind of windfall sit in a checking account where it can be treated like disposable income. Like candle money, I thought. I nodded. I won't, I said. When the meeting ended, Elena walked me out. At the door, she touched my arm lightly. One more thing, Nia, she said. I turned. Yes? She held my gaze. Whatever you decide to do with this, your payout, your marriage, your career, decide from a place of knowing you are not some accessory to someone else's earning power, she said. You built something very real with your so-called small paycheck. Don't let anybody rewrite that story, including you. My throat closed up. Thank you, I managed. She smiled. Now go back to being the one who keeps everybody else paid, she said. Just remember you're one of those people too. I walked back to my desk, feeling like I was carrying a secret that weighed nothing and everything at the same time. On the way, my phone buzzed. A new email preview flashed across the screen. From HR Director to Marcus King, CC, Sales Manager, Compliance. Subject, meeting today, 2 p.m. My pulse kicked up. It wasn't my meeting. But I knew, in a few hours, my husband was going to sit in that same glass fishbowl and hear, for the first time, that the woman he'd been teasing about her little HR check was now important enough to trigger policy. And that the way he talked about her at work was now officially HR business. At 1:55 p.m., my stomach starts doing small somersaults. I'm at my desk pretending to proof a batch of pay stubs, but I'm really watching the clock in the corner of my screen. 2 p.m. Somewhere upstairs, a calendar notification pops up on Marcus's laptop, with the same subject line I saw earlier. Meeting today, 2 p.m. I picture him frowning at it, then shrugging it off like he always does. It's probably about the acquisition, he'd said at breakfast when he checked his calendar. They better not mess with my commissions. He had no idea the meeting wasn't about what he thought. I try to focus on my work, but my attention keeps drifting up to the sales floor. I can't see everything from my corner, but I can see just enough through the glass. At 2:07, I spot him. He's walking down the hallway, suit jacket open, one hand in his pocket. The usual swagger. He knocks on the glass conference room door like he's doing them a favor by showing up. Elena opens it. Her face is polite, professional. She doesn't smile. Jonah is already inside with a folder. The door closes. I look away. I don't want to be that person craning my neck for company drama, even if I'm accidentally part of it. But my ears are buzzing now, full of imaginary dialogue. I can almost hear it. Marcus, thanks for coming in. Please have a seat. We need to discuss your household's equity position in light of the acquisition, and some concerns about comments you've made about your spouse's compensation at company events. I don't know exactly what's happening in that room, but I know what it feels like to be on the other side of Elena's "we need to talk" voice. I keep my eyes on my screen. Process payroll adjustments. Approve a PTO request. Answer an email about a tax form. Anything to keep my hands busy while the power dynamic in my marriage is being quietly rewritten in a room 2 floors above my head. The meeting lasts 32 minutes. I know, because I sneak a glance at the clock when I see Marcus walking back to his desk. The swagger is gone. His jaw is tight, lips pressed into a flat line. He sits down harder than necessary, yanks his chair in, and stares at his screen like he's trying to burn a hole through it. A few minutes later, my internal chat pings. Marcus, you at your desk? I hesitate, then type back. Me, yeah. Why? There's a pause. Marcus, we need to talk when we get home. Marcus, and don't be late. The old me would have felt a jolt of panic at that. We need to talk used to be my least favorite sentence. Now I just sit with it, let it wash over me. Then I close the chat and finish my day. He's already home when I pull into the driveway. His car is crooked in its spot, one tire a little over the line. That's always been my little private barometer. How straight he parks tells me what kind of mood I'm walking into. Today, the wheel is almost kissing the curb. Inside, the house feels different. The TV is off, no music, no podcast. Marcus is at the kitchen table in his shirt sleeves, tie loosened, a half-empty glass of something amber in front of him. The folder from HR is open. He doesn't look up when I come in. Hey, I say carefully, setting my bag down. He flips a page, still not looking at me. So, he says, you had a busy night with email, huh? There it is. I take a breath. I sent one email, I say, to clarify my equity account and make sure I understood policies before the acquisition. He laughs once sharp. Don't play dumb, Nia, he says. You knew exactly what you were doing. He finally looks up. His eyes are not the playful, teasing ones I'm used to. They're hard. You went to HR behind my back, he says, about money. I went to HR about my account, I correct quietly, because that's my job, to do things the right way, on paper. They had a whole file, he snaps, slapping the folder. Numbers, charts, a nice little speech about key shareholders, and household conflicts. He spits the words out like they taste bad. Do you know what they told me? He continues. They're freezing me out of a big account I've been working for months, Nia. All because of your little secret stash. The phrase lands heavy. Secret stash. Like I've been stealing. It's not a stash, I say, keeping my voice even. It's the equity plan I signed up for before I even met you. You've seen the deduction on my pay stub for years. He waves his hand. Yeah, I saw a line, he says. I didn't realize you were out here playing silent partner while I'm doing the heavy lifting. I stare at him. Marcus, I gave up part of my paycheck every month to build that, I say, feeling my own heat rise. While you were buying new rims and bottle service. Don't act like you carried me. He lets out a bitter laugh. Oh, here we go, he says. HR Nia with the speeches. He leans back, folding his arms. Do you have any idea how it felt, he says slowly, to sit in that glass room and hear my own wife's name come out of compliance's mouth? To have them tell me, given your spouse's equity position, we're going to reassign you from certain high-value accounts until after the acquisition closes. That's standard policy, I say. It's not about you. It's about avoiding the appearance of... He slams his hand on the table. Don't you dare say appearance of impropriety to me like I'm some bullet point in your training slides, he snaps. I jump a little, then forcibly relax my shoulders. This used to be the moment I'd fold, apologize, take responsibility for his feelings so the house would go quiet again. Instead, I look at the folder between us. Did they also talk to you about the other thing? I ask. He frowns. What other thing? How you talk about me at work, I say. He snorts. Oh, that, he says, rolling his eyes. They said a couple of people felt uncomfortable with my jokes. Please, everybody knows I'm playing. They're just soft. They're not soft, I say. They're tired of you disrespecting your own wife in front of them. His jaw flexes. Since when do you care what some junior rep thinks? He says. You should be mad at them for running to HR. I shake my head. They didn't, I say. Not directly. Elena's heard you herself. So have I. So has half this building. Silence stretches between us. The fridge hums. Outside, a car door slams down the street. Marcus chuckles, but there's no humor in it. So that's it, he says? You get one lucky break, and suddenly you're talking to me like we're on the same level financially? The words are soft but sharp. On the same level. Like there's a ladder, and I've been a few rungs below this whole time. I feel something inside me settle. Not break. Settle. I've always been on your level, I say quietly. You just refuse to see it. He shakes his head. You're unbelievable, he says. You know how many bills I've paid in this house? How many times my bonus covered things your check couldn't? There it is, I say, more to myself than him. The line. What line? You're lucky I pay bills, I say. That's what you've been saying in 10 different ways for years. At the bar, at your mom's house, in front of your friends. You never say it all the way, but you mean it. He doesn't deny it. Because it's true, he says. If I walked out tomorrow, you'd feel it. I think of the equity account, of the number on that page. Printout now sitting in a folder with my name on it in Elena's office. Maybe I would have, a few years ago, I say, before I realized how much I'd already built, before I saw you turn money into a weapon every chance you got. He stands up suddenly, pushing his chair back. So what now? He demands. You gonna start throwing that number in my face every time we argue? You gonna start paying all the bills and telling me I'm lucky? I stand up too. No, I say. I'm gonna start paying my own bills, my way, without you using them as proof of your importance. He laughs meanly. Please, he says. What, you gonna move out? You can't just walk into some bank and buy freedom, Nia. Life doesn't work like that. I reach for my bag. I have a meeting with someone who understands exactly how life works when you stop making yourself small, I say. A financial advisor. And after that, a lawyer. He freezes. A lawyer, he repeats. For what? For options, I say simply. For information. For protection. For making sure that whatever happens next, I have my own footing. His nostrils flare. So that's what this is, he says. You get one big payout, and suddenly you're ready to throw away a whole marriage. I pause at the doorway. I'm not throwing anything away. I say. I'm just done pretending that being married to you is the only way I get to have a roof over my head. His eyes narrow. Who do you think paid for that roof? He says, voice low. Because it wasn't your little equity pennies. I meet his gaze one last time. Keep thinking that, I say softly. It's going to make what's coming next a real surprise. I leave him standing there in the kitchen, shoulders tight, hands on the back of the chair like he's trying to hold on to something solid. As I step out into the late afternoon light, my phone buzzes. A calendar reminder pops up. 3:30 p.m., consultation with attorney, property and financial planning. So I take a deep breath, square my shoulders, and head to my car. For the first time since we signed that mortgage, I'm going to sit in a room where someone walks me through the paperwork line by line. Not as Marcus's wife, not as small paycheck Nia, as the woman whose name is about to matter more than he ever thought it would, on accounts, on contracts, and very soon on a deed he has always assumed belonged to him. Tss. I'd never been in a lawyer's office before. Not like this, anyway, not as the client. Her name was Denise Carter, mid-50s, locks pulled back into a low bun, dark green suit that said she'd seen every kind of messy situation and didn't scare easy. Her office smelled like coffee and printer toner, with a little vanilla candle burning low on the bookshelf. She didn't waste time. So, she said, flipping through the copies I'd brought, you work in HR payroll. You signed up for an equity savings plan 5 years ago. Your husband also works at the same company in sales. And now there's an acquisition, and suddenly your account is worth this. She tapped the number with her pen. I still got a little dizzy every time I saw it. Yes, I said, and HR just told him he's getting pulled off certain deals because of household conflict of interest. He's not happy. I bet he's not, she said dryly. And you? I hesitated. Honestly, I said, relieved, scared, a little angry, and, for the first time in a long time, not trapped. She nodded like she heard that a lot. Good, she said. Let's get some ground under your feet, then we can talk about what to do with it. She started with questions. When had I opened the account? Before Marcus. Years ago. How long had we been married? 3 years. Did he contribute anything to that account? No. What was our current housing situation? Debts? Joint accounts? I answered as best I could, feeling weirdly exposed and oddly seen at the same time. This stranger knew more about our finances in 20 minutes than my own husband had asked in 3 years. When she'd filled a page and a half with notes, she leaned back. Okay, she said, here's the short version. She walked me through it slowly, careful, with all the disclaimers about state laws and marital property. But the big picture was clear. The equity plan was offered to me as an individual employee. I'd signed up before we were a couple. The contributions had always come out of my check. Yes, being married layered some shared property rules over things, but it did not magically turn my entire payout into his money. And more importantly, she said, this account is in your name alone. The company recognizes you as the owner. That matters. I swallowed. So what can he take? I asked. If I decide to... I couldn't quite say the word. Separate? She supplied gently. Divorce? I nodded. It depends on how far you go and how much you're willing to negotiate, she said frankly. But I want you to shift your mindset a little. You came in here talking like a defendant. You are not on trial. You are a woman who has an asset and options. She slid a blank legal pad toward me, turned it horizontally, and drew 3 columns. Column 1, she said, writing as she spoke. Stay married. Status quo, but with separate financial planning on your side. Column 2, legal separation or divorce, where you aim for a clean split, preserving as much of your individual equity as possible. Column 3, some hybrid where you don't divorce right away, but you lock down your independence. Separate accounts, Clear agreements, maybe a postnuptial. The words postnuptial agreement made my stomach flutter. I didn't even know that was a thing, I admitted. Oh, people absolutely do them, she said, especially when money dynamics change mid-marriage. One spouse sells a company, gets an inheritance, has a windfall, or say an equity plan hits the jackpot. She gave me a pointed look. The key is this, she continued. You stop letting him talk about your paycheck like it's pocket change, and you stop acting like your only job is to keep the peace. You start thinking like someone who has leverage. I thought about Marcus at the kitchen table, anger simmering under his skin. He's going to be furious, I said quietly. If I ask him to sign anything, if I move money, if I leave. She folded her hands. Nia, she said, from what you've told me, he's already furious when you don't play the part he's written for you. This money doesn't create that. It just shines a light on it. The truth of that landed heavy and clean. She went on. We talked about practical steps, opening an individual account at a different bank and having the equity payout wired there. Paying off my student loans and the little credit card balance in my own name. Setting up a separate emergency fund at wasn't ours, just mine. We talked about the house. How is the deed titled? She asked. Joint, I said. Both our names, 50-50. Okay, she said. So if you divorce, there will be a negotiation. Sell the house and split what's left after the mortgage. Or one of you buys out the other. Given your upcoming payout, you're actually in a position to make him an offer instead of begging him not to take everything. The image shocked me. I'd been living so long with the story that he was the one who could throw me out, that the idea of sitting across from him and calmly discussing a buyout felt like another universe. But slow down, she added. You don't have to decide today. Right now, your priorities are, number 1, protecting the payout. Number 2, separating your finances cleanly. Number 3, documenting his behavior if it escalates. She slid a simple checklist across the desk. Call the company's equity administrator and confirm payout logistics. Open new bank account in my name only. Update beneficiaries. Stop routing my pay into a joint account he controls. Keep copies of key documents somewhere safe. It was boring, unglamorous work. Exactly the kind of work I'm good at. We ended the meeting with something I didn't expect. Do you have support? She asked. Friends, family, therapist, pastor, anyone who's not on his payroll emotionally? I thought of my little sister, blowing up my phone with TikToks and random memes. Of my best friend, who'd moved out of state but still called me once a week. Of my mom, who had her own complicated feelings about men and money. I have people, I said. I just haven't told them everything. Start, she said. You don't have to tell them about the money if you don't want to, but tell someone the truth about how he's been talking to you, how he handles power. Secrets keep people stuck. On the way out, she shook my hand. Whatever you decide, decide from a place of options, she said. You have them now. Use them. The acquisition closed 3 weeks later. It happened on a Tuesday morning. At 9:02 a.m., an all-company email hit everyone's inbox with cheerful corporate language about exciting new chapter and combined synergies. At 9:17, my phone buzzed. Incoming wire notice. I stepped into an empty break room, hands suddenly clammy, and opened the banking app tied to the brand new account I'd set up on Denise's advice. There it was, a number I'd only seen in projections, now sitting as an actual balance. Mine. No joint login, no household view, no card with someone else's name embossed next to mine. Just me. For a moment, I just stared at it. Not with greed, with gratitude and a very clear sense of responsibility. I paid off my student loans that afternoon on my lunch break, clicked submit payment, and watched a balance I'd been carrying since I was 19 drop to 0. I walked back to my desk, lighter, taller. Marcus, ping me later. Marcus, so that's it, huh? Marcus, you rich now? I typed slowly. Me, I'm stable now. Me, that's what I wanted. He didn't respond. Things at home didn't blow up all at once. It was more like a power grid slowly rerouting itself. I stopped justifying every purchase. If I wanted to buy my sister a plane ticket to visit me, I did it. If I wanted to order takeout instead of cooking, I did it without announcing, "Don't worry, I used my own card." I called our utility companies and had the bills split or moved into my name where it made sense, not to take on more burden, but to create clean lines. This is what I'm responsible for. That is what you're responsible for. When the mortgage auto draft came up for renewal with the bank, I asked for a meeting. We sat in a small glass office, me and Marcus side by side. The loan officer, a black woman, maybe 10 years older than me, clicked through our file on her screen. "As part of the system update," she said, "we need you both to confirm the accounts this payment will draw from. Your previous setup had everything coming from the joint checking ending in 2842. Do you want to keep it that way?" Marcus started to speak. "Yeah, just leave it. Actually," I said, interrupting gently, "I'd like to split it. Half from the joint, half from this account." I slid a slip of paper across the desk with my new bank info. The officer nodded and typed. Marcus whipped his head toward me. "Since when do you have another account?" he demanded under his breath. "Since before we got married," I said calmly. "I just didn't use it much. Now I am." He sank back in his chair, jaw tight. But he didn't say anything else in front of the loan officer. As we left, he muttered, "So this is you showing off?" "No," I said. "This is me participating." At home, the arguments shifted. He still had his pride, his resentment, his digs. But every time he said something like, "You'd be lost without me," it landed weaker, flimsier. Even he could hear the crack in it. Because the reality had changed. And deep down he knew it. I wish I could say that money fixed everything. It didn't. Money doesn't make a person kind. It doesn't teach them to listen. It doesn't scrub the years of little cuts off your skin overnight. What it did do was this. It gave me the ability to choose something other than endure and hope he calms down. One night, a few months after the acquisition, we had the biggest fight we'd ever had. It started the usual way. He made a joke about my candle money in front of his mother. I called it out, gently, in the moment, for the first time. "Marcus, that's disrespectful," I said. "Don't talk about me like that." He laughed it off. His mom looked uncomfortable, and we all pretended to keep eating. But at home, the mask came off. He accused me of embarrassing him in front of his family. I pointed out that he'd been embarrassing me in front of everyone for years. Words flew. Old wounds got ripped open. Lines were crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. And for the first time, instead of backing down just to make it stop, I said the sentence I'd rehearsed quietly in my head and in Denise's office. "I don't want to live like this anymore." It wasn't a threat. It was a truth. The next few months were a blur of paperwork and counseling attempts and awkward silences. We tried a therapist once. He spent most of the hour making jokes. In the end, we sat at a long conference table across from each other with our lawyers and hammered out the details of a separation that looked, on paper, surprisingly balanced. We agreed to sell the house. After the mortgage and fees, there wasn't as much left as he thought. His debts, his spending, his habit of treating every bonus like a lottery win had eaten away at what he imagined was his empire. I used my share of the proceeds, plus a portion of my equity payout, to buy a small townhome in my own name. My name alone. Marcus moved into an apartment closer to his office, with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a rent that made my eye twitch just hearing the number. We divided the furniture. We split the accounts. We signed. There were no dramatic scenes, no storming out. Just pens on paper. keys changing hands, and the soft click of a door that no longer belonged to both of us. The last time I saw him at work, before I changed jobs, we passed each other in the lobby. He was coming in with a client, smiled turned up to 11. I was walking out with a box of my things on my hip, a plant sticking out the top. We both stopped. "Hey," he said, a little awkwardly. "So you're really leaving, huh?" I nodded. "I got an offer," I said. "HR manager at a smaller firm. Better culture, less chaos." I didn't say less of you, but we both heard it. He shifted his weight. "So," he said, "you really did it, huh? Turned your little paycheck into something big." I could have rubbed it in. Could have listed out every bill I'd paid off, every step I'd taken. Instead, I just smiled. A small, private smile that didn't ask for his approval. "I just stopped treating it like it was little," I said. That made all the difference. He swallowed. For a second, the bravado dropped. What looked back at me wasn't a villain. Just a man who'd built his whole sense of worth on being the one who pays, and was now standing in front of a woman who no longer needed that from him. "Take care of yourself, Marcus," I said. "You too," he answered, almost automatic. I walked out into the sunlight with my box, my plant, and my own future, paid for by every small decision I'd made when nobody was watching. So when I tell you that my husband mocked my small paycheck, and then HR called him about the account I secretly owned, this is what I mean. He thought the only money that mattered was the loud kind, the bonuses, the commissions, the checks you wave around at bars so people can clap. He didn't notice the quiet kind, the kind that leaves your account a little lighter every month so your future can be heavier with options. The kind that doesn't need applause to grow. The kind that lets you look at someone who says, "You'd be nothing without me," and know in your bones they're wrong. If you're listening to this and someone in your life keeps telling you your contribution is small, I hope you remember my story. Small doesn't mean powerless. Sometimes it just means quiet, until the day it doesn't have to be anymore.